Record. There we go. So, hello everyone. Welcome to Courtly Conversation. I am here with Leah Toole. Um, so,
Hi.
so I've got some questions.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you? So, I've
Mm-hmm.
got some questions. So let's start, I guess. So, first of all, very basic.
Yeah, happy to.
What inspired you to start writing?
Yeah, it was literally Mary the First's life story that made me want to start writing. It was literally that. I was watching The Tudors, the TV show, for I think like the fourth time, just because, and it dawned on me that Mary is just always a side character, and we don't like it's always usually about the wives and Henry, the great matter, but Mary's life isn't really looked at, just her reign. So yeah, I wanted to write a book about her entire life, and that's literally where it started.
Yeah, a lot of times, always about Elizabeth or Henry, but they never focus on Mary. And one thing with Mary, she set up a lot of she set up a lot of the groundwork for a lot of the stuff Elizabeth got all the credit for, and that's something that's very overlooked. So that is definitely
true.
And when you approach a new historical topic, what does your research process look like from the first idea to the final product?
Gosh, I usually write about one specific figure. So I would try to read as much as I can about them chronologically, usually, because obviously that's how I write the books as well. I just try to focus primarily on that person and see like their perspective of things and how things affected them, because obviously every perspective is different. Like when I was writing my first two books, I did this side by side scenes almost in the books. One in Mary's perspective, and then when I was writing The Haunted Queen about Elizabeth, sometimes I used the same scene, but it was in Elizabeth's perspective, because we all take it in different ways, everything that's happening. I like to read just as much as I can, and also just watch documentaries, listen to historians, stuff like that.
Yeah, I like the
Get into mindset.
I like the idea of the whole looking at both perspectives of one situation. That's definitely something I think there are a lot of authors who should do more of that, because you find there's not a whole lot of people who assess everything going on between the two important.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Which book of yours you've wrote is your favorite, would you say?
Oh, it's like choosing your favorite child. I would have to say The Rose and the Pomegranate definitely is top 3. This was just really, really fun to write. It looks at the life that Arthur Tudor might have had if he hadn't died in 1502, and his reign, and like if Henry hadn't been king, and that was really fun to explore. So probably that one.
Yeah, it's
I feel really bad picking one.
Yeah, it's nice it's really nice concept too. That's definitely one I really like. I like alternate history, like what could have happened. That's one thing I myself am a big fan of. It's nice to explore what could have happened.
I'm writing another alternative now, actually.
Let's see. Which Tudor monarch, or Tudor in general, do you feel had the most interesting life overall?
Oh, interesting life. Oh my gosh, definitely Elizabeth had the most interesting life, I would say. Yeah. She had a lot going on. A lot happened to her. Yeah, definitely the most interesting, probably, yeah.
Yeah, from a young age, just all this stuff. And then she gets older, she becomes like Queen of England. She's got all these things going on in her life. And yeah, that's...
Yeah, she was certainly interesting, yeah.
Yeah. And we got like the Spanish Armada, but when she's only 3, her mother becomes the first English queen to be executed. Like, so much goes on throughout her life.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, her reign alone is incredible. she was definitely a genius of her time. That's undeniable. You might not agree with everything she did, but yeah, she was definitely the most interesting, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
And a lot of the time, people, they don't fully kind of comprehend the amount of stuff that not just happened to her, but that she did. Like, it's always like the same couple things they talk about.
Mm,
So much happened under her reign and during her life. It's
yeah,
like,
so much.
it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some key points that people will focus on, especially if they're learning it briefly in school. Like obviously, like you said, the Spanish Armada and her speeches, things like that. But as you said, there are so many more things that she did, and I didn't even know most of them until I was writing my book about her. So the Haunted Queen, which is follows her entire life, and yeah, her reign had some things in it that I was really shocked to learn. But again, interesting. Good or bad is irrelevant. It was just interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I know you recently had your book, another one about Arthur. Oh, what was it called? Uh, his name was
Yes,
Arthur.
it's called His Name Was Arthur. Nice and easy. His name was Arthur. There it is.
Is there anything that you'd like to say about that, and like, what inspired you to write it?
So what inspired me was my previous series. So my previous series follows the lives of Henry VIII's children, and then I was thinking of doing one about Henry VII, something like that. And then I thought, why don't I do one for Henry VII's children? That again will be a lovely series. And obviously that's what inspired the first book in the series, which is His Name Was Arthur. And yeah, and it's just literally about his whole life, which again had so many things in it that I didn't know and that most people don't know. And it was just really fun to research and bring to life. And I'm excited for the series that will follow it. Obviously, Margaret's gonna have a book, and Mary and Henry's gonna have a big chunky book because his life was very full. So that's exciting.
I'm very excited to read about Margaret. She had a very interesting life,
Mhm.
but she's usually more overlooked out of all the siblings.
Yes. Yes, she is. And I'm super excited to research it because I know a little bit about her, but not tons. So yeah, it's gonna be really fun. I'm excited for that.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be an exciting thing. Um, so your first book was The Saddest Princess about Mary the First. What are your thoughts on Mary, both as a person and as a monarch?
Oh gosh, okay. As a person, I do believe that she is villainized a lot because of her short and dramatic reign. I do think that she is a lot. She's very different to how we, as a collective society, remember her. But she was not a good queen. Like that. That needs to be said. There are some things in her reign that she did that were good. But all in all, of course, there were a lot of things that you can't condone. And she was given a really tricky situation, and yeah, dealt with it in a certain way. But I do believe that as a person, because you asked me about as a person and a monarch, as a person, I think she is villainized, and I think there is a lot more to her, and a lot more to her life and who she was. Like she did have a lot of love to give. She was a great older sister to her siblings and a mother figure really to them, more so than any of the stepmothers sometimes. And yeah, I think yeah, the person and the monarch does need separating sometimes when it comes to Mary the First because she did have a bit of a crappy situation in her queenship, and she did some terrible things. But as a person, she wasn't completely bad. Yeah.
Uh, Much like Elizabeth, she also had a
That makes
very
sense.
eventful life. Um,
Yes.
Very
Yeah.
similarly, like there's a lot of parallels too, but they're also very different
Mm.
lives as well. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
which
I mean, again, like you say, Elizabeth in total isn't a bad person. There are a lot of things that she did that were bad, but we only remember the good. So yeah, people just have different interpretations of those two based on not a lot of information, really. Yeah.
which interpretation in media do you feel is the best of any of the Tudors?
Okay, I've always really liked Kate Blanchett's representation of Elizabeth I in the film Elizabeth. I didn't like the second film, but in the first film she was brilliant. I also really like Maria Doyle Kennedy as Catherine of Aragon is probably my favourite Catherine of Aragon, despite the fact that she's got black hair. Like, I don't care about the way it looks. I think the way she presented and was Catherine was very, very good. And I also really like Sarah Bolger in the TV show The Tudors for Mary. She did really well. And then Romola Garai was probably my favourite Mary in general. And that's in Becoming Elizabeth. Yeah, there's a lot really good actors that I think interpret the figures very well.
Questions to see which ones I still got to ask.
Yeah.
When you're researching a person or event, how do you decide what's fact, what's interpretation, what's myth? Do you have a personal method for sorting through conflicting sources?
Well, a lot of the time they'll be categorized as such when you're researching them. So myths and reports that have been found to be incorrect, they're usually, they say so. That by the historians and stuff, they will always explain what is myth and what is not. And then with facts, you've got to take things with a pinch of salt sometimes because like these people were living it in the present, and sometimes there will be things said in anger and whatever, and it's got to always correlate with other things. Like if there's 3 pieces of evidence that say the same thing, then that's generally regarded as a fact. So yeah, but this is the beauty of writing fiction, is that I'm not writing 100% accurate books. So therefore, if I wanted to take a myth or something and put it in there as like a bit of entertainment, then I can, and that's always fun.
That's another good thing about some sources, because it might be like outlandish, but you can also use that as a way to like entertain, and it could be something incredibly stupid, but it's like, I could work this into something good, and that's one of the great things.
And as long as about fiction, and as long as I, in the author's note at the end, always then make sure I say that, this was made up, or whatever. And I always try to do that in my books, because I don't want to be spreading misinformation. If it's used for the purpose of entertainment, I usually do say so in the author's note.
What advice do you have for anyone looking to write historical fiction?
Live it, breathe it, everything. If you're writing about a certain period in history, you've got to every day, as much as you can, watch things, read things, listen to podcasts about just that period of time, because the more you know, the more easily the book will come out of you. You know what I mean? Like, if you love it as well, you need to love what you're writing about. If you're not passionate about what you're writing about, then it'll just be a chore and it won't be fun. That would be my advice.
Definitely very good advice for people who need that. There's a lot of people who write and you read it and it's like, they clearly didn't want to do it. They clearly didn't bother to check what they were writing. And
sometimes, yeah. And it's frustrating.
Yeah, but there are definitely a lot of good books like that. Which book of yours did you find the hardest to write, and why?
Oh, the hardest to write was probably The Rose and the Pomegranate. Even though it's probably one of my favorites, it's also one of the hardest, because this was my first step into like 90% fiction. You know what I mean? So like my books usually, obviously they're all fiction, but I have a clear chronological order of events, and I know why things happen, la la la. But with this one, I had to make it all up myself because obviously it focuses on Arthur's life had he lived, and we don't have any information about that because he didn't. So that being all on me and really trying to make sense of him as a person when we have so little information on him and what he would have been like as king and what kind of reign he would have had and how he would have dealt with, you know, the politics of things and his struggles. Yeah, that was really probably the hardest book to write, The Rose and the Pomegranate, which is maybe why it is my favorite, because I had to rest so much. Who knows?
Yeah, having to stretch out, like think, like how could this have happened? Maybe this would be something that would have happened.
Mm.
That's definitely, having to use your imagination to try and think of like, okay, what should happen
Yeah.
next? Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds like it was probably not hard, but definitely fun to write at the same time.
Oh yeah. It was hard and fun. I had to brainstorm a lot. A lot.
While studying and researching for your historical fiction, what is a fact that you came across, either shocked, disgusted, freaked out, or surprised you?
Oh, I think while researching Henry Fitzroy for the 5th book in the series, which is The Hopeful Duke, so obviously it follows the life of Henry Fitzroy, I was surprised to learn. Actually, my entire perspective on Henry Fitzroy changed while I was writing that book, because I always stood firm in the belief that Henry was never going to put him up as a potential heir, that the public would never have accepted him. But yeah, after researching him a bit better, I've actually learned that Henry was trying to shape him into a potential heir, and he would have actually probably been accepted in the long run, despite the fact that he was illegitimate. So yeah, that was really surprising and interesting. And I also found in that same book, researching that same book, that Henry VIII fathered a daughter with Bessie Blount as well as Henry Fitzroy. So that was really surprising as well. That was really fun and interesting.
I had never actually heard that last one, but on top of
Yeah, no, that was sorry, go on.
Oh no, you continue.
Oh, no, I was just going to say Elizabeth Norton wrote about that, and how the dates it makes complete sense that her daughter Elizabeth, who's called Elizabeth Taleboys because Bessie then went on to marry Gilbert Taleboys in 1522. So the daughter got her husband's name, but dates-wise, she was born like 10 months after Fitzroy was born. So Bessie was still in a relationship with Henry at that point, most likely, because she still wasn't married. She wasn't married until like 2 years later, so it can't be Gilbert Taleboys' daughter. I just found that very, very interesting. Yeah.
On the topic of Henry Fitzroy, though, Henry's involvement in his life was definitely a bit of a smack in the face to Catherine of Aragon, because, not just is it because he's illegitimate, but, he's showing off, like, this is my son. I can have sons, but this is my wife, and she can't have one, a surviving one. So that was definitely one thing that was... Because people, when they think about Henry, they don't realize how much he knew, like, how to humiliate people, knowing it would humiliate them. He's very big on that.
Yeah, he is. And Fitzroy was a key moment to Henry as well, where he himself realized the problem isn't with me, or at least that's how he viewed it. Obviously there was, it's irrelevant, and it's very tragic with what happened with their marriage and with Catherine's children. But in his view, he saw it as, Catherine is the problem here. I am able to have sons because I have a son and he's healthy and wonderful. And so, yeah, that was like a key moment for him to realize that actually, what can I do maybe in the future? I think. I don't know if he was thinking that far ahead just yet, but I'm sure in hindsight, he probably thought, oh, that was like the first clue.
Yeah, he was definitely in that point where it's like, not quite realizing it, but like, I have a son. I don't have a legitimate one, but like, how can maybe I can, use this in some manner. And then of course, when he
Yeah.
ends up wanting to get an annulment. He's all about, oh, she was married to Arthur,
Mm.
blah blah blah.
Oh god, that whole argument.
Every little while, it's like, Henry, why? It doesn't make sense sometimes, stuff he'll say.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, he was such a hypocrite.
yeah. Especially, he marries Anne Boleyn, but he had an affair with her sister. So by that logic, he's saying that, well, of course, Catherine had relationships with my brother, so of course, she can't be legal. But then he marries Anne Boleyn, and he had
Yeah.
an affair with her sister. And he's like, oh no, this is
Yep.
legal because I said so. And it's
Yep.
just so much hypocrisy, but like,
Yeah.
he would have never admitted that anyway. He'd be like, well, technically,
No.
this and this,
Yeah. There was always an excuse. There was always
Yeah.
some reason why it was okay for him, not okay for everyone else. Yeah.
Never, yep, it was never his fault. It was always like, oh, that was Wolsey, that was Cromwell, that was Moore, that was someone, but it wasn't me. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
oh gosh, yeah. His poor advisor.
He regrets something. He's like, it was actually this one who made me do it. And so we should blame them
Yep.
for this because, I'm Henry and I'm the King of England and...
Yeah. Yeah, well, you can't lay blame on the king.
No.
Never.
Besides your own books, what is a Tudor book, fiction or nonfiction, that you thought was well written?
Oh gosh, I've read so many. I've read so many books. I mean, I really, really enjoyed Alison Ware's The Wives series. But I read this, I've read these fictions 10 years ago. But I do remember really enjoying them. And I even really enjoyed Philippa Gregory's books. They were very enjoyable. Not obviously very accurate, but very, very fun. And well written, I will say, for fiction. They were well written. They were very entertaining. And, they flowed well. I mean, the most recent non-fiction book that I read is this one about Arthur, because obviously I needed everything I could find about Arthur. And there's not a lot. And that was interesting as well. There was a lot of interesting stuff in there. But yeah, so many.
Yeah, like you mentioned a minute ago, Philippa Gregory. People are always so about her, but I don't think she's never claimed to be writing like fact. She is historical fiction. Like you can't mention the other Boleyn girl or anything like that without at least one person being like, "Oh God, not her." But like, it's fiction.
No, I have to disagree. There are interviews. Unfortunately, there are interviews of Philippa Gregory claiming that what she wrote is fact. Unfortunately, this is my one thing about her, is that I love her books. I think they're so great and so fun. There are sadly there are interviews of her claiming that they are 100% factual sometimes, and it's like, no, you can't say that. They're just not. And that's the issue people have with Philippa Gregory, is that, yeah, she stands firm in her fictionalization, sadly.
I did not know that. Thank you for telling me that.
That's all right. I've seen them myself, and I was very surprised. But yeah.
In terms of fiction, it's like, wow, this is great, but oof.
Yeah, you've just got to read it and know that it's fiction, and that's that, and just have fun.
Yeah.
Just enjoy it.
Plus, no book can be 100% accurate, because of course we don't know everything.
No. Absolutely. Exactly. And even non-fiction books will have errors. I mean, I actually found a couple of errors in this one, and this is about Arthur's life, and there was one error, which was his I think his coronation, his baptism date. The month was wrong. And even if that, like, irrelevant to that, it is still written by a human being. Non-fiction books are still written by human beings, and they will have some parts where there will be personal preference seeping through. It's just they won't be 100% factual ever. We're always learning stuff.
Yeah,
things change all the time.
And we find every little while, we're gonna find like new information and new sources and stuff. and that's inevitable.
Yeah,
And I agree, though,
definitely.
when you said they are people too, a lot of people seem to forget, you're reading it, but the author is human. People tend to forget that too.
Mm,
And they'll focus solely on
yeah,
any errors or something that just doesn't seem right, instead of just appreciating the work
yeah,
overall. And that is something people definitely need to work
yeah.
on.
And historians will have conflicting perspectives too. I mean, there are some historians who, for example, are pro Anne Boleyn and some are anti Anne Boleyn, and
Yeah,
they'll take the same piece of evidence and view it differently,
yeah,
and yeah, I mean, we're all human. We will all interpret things differently and have personal preferences. So
yeah,
nothing is 100% fact, basically. I mean, it is, but some things.
yeah. Uh, is there a tutor figure you feel is deeply misunderstood, or someone whose story you wish people re-examine with fresh eyes?
Definitely Mary the First. Definitely Mary the First. I think we know what she did that was bad. But people, I mean, not that I'm saying that it's excusable, because it absolutely is not, but people need to evaluate why it happened, um, and what was her reasonings, and also the fact that she a lot of the time tried to stop the burnings, and like there's more to it than just, oh yeah, I want these 280 people killed.
Mhm.
Like it never is that simple. There's so much more to it. Like the Jane Grey situation as well. People just say, "Oh, she just had her killed because she wanted her throne," and there's so much more to it.
Mhm.
That she tried to stop the execution, that she pushed it back. She tried to spare her by hoping that she would convert to Catholicism so that she wouldn't be a threat to her. All these things. So yeah, I think Mary the First should be reevaluated because she's not as evil as she's made out to be. And now down that hill.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. And unironically, quoting your book, she was very, as you call it, the saddest princess. That is very, not just good title for the book, but pretty accurate. And I mean, she also, people overlook it, she had a lot of sad and like terrible things, especially like her false pregnancies, which eventually led her husband to leave her and go back to Spain. And
Gosh.
all they'll see is just like, oh, she executed people. But when you also look at it, I mean, yes, the amount in that long of time is, but it's also not just her who can say, like, oh yeah, that person's being executed. Um, and
No,
she,
exactly, precisely. That her council. Sorry, go on. I keep interrupting.
no, continue that point because that seems like it's going to be a very important point here. Like, yeah, her
Who,
council,
me or you?
you,
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say that her council also, passed the orders for some executions that she didn't even know about. So there's so much more to it than just Mary pointing and saying, "You burn, you burn, you burn." Like
yeah,
there's so much more to it.
yeah, that is, yeah. They don't think about the fact that it's not just the monarch who can be like, yeah, we're executing them. There's important people in England too. It's not just the queen or king who can be like, we're doing
Mm,
this. But like, and although yes, it is a fair amount of people in that short of a
yeah.
time, you also have to look at her family, like her father and her sister. Although they had longer reigns, you could argue they were significantly more violent in many manners. And although yes, she
Yeah.
was not a good queen, she herself, like you said earlier, she had a lot of struggles, and people conveniently kind of overlook that she was a person who went through all these things. It's always just like, oh yeah, she's evil because that's what they said.
Yeah, it is just very simplified sometimes. Um, but yeah, I mean, the way I always look at the number of deaths is I always look at it per annum. So per year, Henry, Elizabeth, and even Edward. I mean, Edward is probably the best example to use because Edward reigned for 6 years and Mary reigned for 5, so it's a very similar amount of time. But in that time, under Edward's reign, 5,500 odd people were executed for religious conflict. Um, so again, it's the same thing. I mean, they weren't burnt, fair enough, but they were still killed for being Catholic. And under Mary, it's 280. So per year,
Yeah,
it is a lot less. But yeah, people kind of forget about Edward a lot. Then they compare her to Elizabeth and Elizabeth's 40 odd year reign. But yeah, Edward is probably the best example to use when you're comparing violence and
Yeah.
deaths under a monarch's reign.
Yeah. And what was I gonna say? There's a big argument on whether Edward himself would have become tyrannical, similar to his father. Um, and I myself see that it would very be something likely that could have happened because I mean, although the whole family was kind of off, but they just villainized the one, and everyone else is just kind of like either glorified or like dulled down. And that's one sad thing,
Mm,
especially with like
yeah.
her grandfather, Henry VII. They with him it's just so oversimplified to like no one
Mm,
ever talks about him because it's just so like overlooked by everyone following him. But like he's the foundation
yeah.
of all this. He prepares England for everything that's gonna come, and he's just so overlooked. And like similar with like Mary, there's like she did this. That's all we care about, and it's sad,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, they just history is oversimplified sometimes. Um, because we only learn it in snippets here and there in history, and unless you pursue that as an interest in higher education or your career, then you won't really learn the nitty-gritty reality. So like most of the population is just running around with very basic understanding, and that's obviously completely fine if that's not their passion and their
Yeah.
interest. That is all that they've learned. But yeah, it is oversimplified, a lot of it. But yeah, there's a lot of information, so that's fair enough, I
Yeah.
suppose.
So when you write or speak about the Tudors, how do you balance the storytelling and entertainment with the historical facts and accuracy?
Uh, hmm. So I think when it comes to writing about, for example, dialogue, thoughts, because obviously there's a lot of thought processes sometimes in the books and in fiction books in general. That's obviously where I lean heavily into the fictionalization and what I think they would be feeling or what I think they would be thinking in that scenario. Because we don't know that. There's absolutely no way that we would know that unless it's written down. I thought this about this particular thing, which hardly ever is. So that's obviously where I lean more into the fiction. I do try to stay as historically accurate and factual as I can. Um, yeah, but then again, because I write about, for example, the series is written in 5 different people's perspectives, and then of course there's all the wives as well, and there's Henry as well, and then there's his advisors as well. They all get their own paragraphs sometimes, and they all have a different thought and feeling about someone or some situation. So it's what is fact, in that case, you know what I mean? Sometimes one book will be more accurate than another because it's a different person's perspective, and they might be seeing something completely wrong because of their feelings. It's tricky. Like in Sadist Princess, obviously it's in Mary's perspective most of the time, so she refers to Anne Boleyn as, the harlot, the concubine, the other woman, and some people might not see her that way. So then, again, what is fact? Am I being inaccurate, or is that just how Mary saw her? I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And especially with depending on the person, so many sources will just be turned against them. Like when
Yes.
Chapoy wrote about Anne Boleyn, of course, he did not like her. It's very known he did not like her. So you look at stuff he will have said about her,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like if you see that and you interpret that as fact, not looking at anything else, that can be a problem. That's why, like people when they do this stuff have to look at different accounts and things about it. Like if you went off, like I said, if
Mm-hmm.
you went off what Chapoy said, it'd be like, but you go off some other sources, people who did not hate her, and you kind of go through it and like you said earlier, seeing what's in common. One thing I'm going to point out,
Yes.
like when with the accounts of Anne Boleyn's execution, although yes, all the sources different opinions about her, you see it and you can see like different things in it, but like the things that are the same and it's like, okay, so this is what we can kind of piece together. And
Yep.
there's one source that says like she gave a speech to her ladies on the scaffold, but no other source mentions that. So of course, you can't interpret that as fact. And of course, then there's the sources that are claimed to be sources, but then they're like years and years after that by someone who likely never even met the person. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and Anne Boleyn especially has a lot of negative attributions towards her based off of sources from people who were like 2 years old when she was queen, and they would never have known. Like, they're just making things up, and those you need to look at for different information. You have to think, why are they doing that? Because what they're saying is most likely false, because how would they know? But why are they doing that? Why? Because they probably wrote it or published the paper, say, in the 1570s. Who's queen at the time? Elizabeth I.
Mhm.
Oh, so they tried to slander the queen indirectly by talking badly about her mother.
Yeah.
And so it becomes a whole different thing. But it's still interesting, but you need to know what's what. Yeah, it is tricky. It's tricky, but so fun. I love doing, like, researching all that.
Yeah, researching is always fun. Everyone kind of says, "Oh, it's just a boring thing," but it's when you look at the source stuff, it's really fun to do.
Yeah, I love it.
So I'm just trying to find a question that I have here that I haven't asked yet.
Okay. I think that's pretty much all of them, isn't it?
I think it might be. Yeah, we got the. That one's done. That one's done. If you could correct one major Tudor misconception seems impossible to kill, what would it be, and why do you think it keeps coming back?
Oh, good God. There are so many. I don't want to say a Mary one again, but I'm also a little wary of saying any Elizabeth things. Oof. I feel like whatever I say, it'll just stir the pot. I guess actually I would like that the idea that Jane Seymour was abusive and negligent towards Elizabeth, baby Elizabeth. I think I'd like to see that stopped, because it's very boring and it's incorrect.
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to the whole people viewing these things in a very, very simplified manner. They don't consider the fear, the emotion, the physical distance between these people. Like, baby Elizabeth was not even at court. Jane probably never even actually saw her in her queenship. Yeah. So there's just that one, I guess, that misconception that Jane was abusive towards Elizabeth. I don't like that one.
Yeah. There's a lot of, I would put it simply, slander against Jane, and it's so stupid. Like, there's so much over glorification of Anne Boleyn, and it's just wild. Like, this is really gonna sound kind of stupid. Like, you might go like on Facebook and look at the groups people talk about the history, and then you'll see all these things about like Anne Boleyn was this, she was amazing, blah. Then it's like and then you'll have like this person like Jane Seymour deserved to die a horrible death, and it's like,
oh, I know.
What? Like,
I know, it's the fact that people can't understand.
Yeah.
The similarities between the women as well. Like, if you find Jane so horrid, how can you like Anne? How? It makes no sense, because Jane did the same, but a lot less.
Yeah.
Like, Jane didn't wish Anne dead. Jane didn't wish all of a country dead like Anne. Jane didn't, she just was basically very chilled out compared to Anne.
Yeah.
In her situation, the mistress position that she was. When Anne was mistress, shit hit the fan in England. And how can you like Anne but then not Jane? Yeah, it doesn't make sense.
And then they'll take like these fictionalized versions of like shows and stuff and be like, oh, she did this on the day she died. She's so horrible. But like, if you think you can
Mm,
blame Jane for what happened to Anne, that same logic, you should be able to blame Anne for what happened to Catherine Berrigan. Like, it just doesn't make sense.
absolutely. I think I know which one you mean as well. That she picked out her wedding dress on the day Anne's execution.
Yes.
Is that the one you meant?
Yeah, it was like a
It's not.
video.
It's so frustrating because it's totally incorrect.
Yeah.
Because no, she didn't. Absolutely no. End of story. Like Henry didn't even propose marriage until after Anne was dead. I know it's not a long time. He only did it a day later. But how can she be picking her wedding dress on the day of her execution if he hasn't even proposed marriage yet?
Exactly.
It's just ridiculous.
I remember that one. It was a video, and it was like, this was happening, and this was happening, and it was like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Then on top, they got people copy and pasting just posts that do well. It's oof. That is why we don't like Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can be quite annoying.
Yeah. Especially like I mentioned earlier, people have this idea that Anne was just perfect and that everyone else around her was just like, it's
evil.
Yeah, I just don't understand how you can act like you know stuff and then say she was like this great, amazing thing. Like, they're all human, and
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
There'll be good sides and bad sides, like I will stand firm in, for example, the fact that she didn't initially want to be queen, like that statement where she said, I will only give myself to my husband. I don't believe that she gave that to him as like an ultimatum, as an idea to get rid of Catherine. I think she said that to gently reject her, because you can't outrightly reject the king as like, but like in that case I will absolutely say yes, she was innocent. But then after a certain time, he was being very attentive and missing her the world, and she then became a little bit more not so nice, because of course she was starting to see that, I could be queen if only this one would die already.
Like,
so there are two sides. There are good and bad in all of us,
and they don't seem to comprehend the fact that you can't deny the king. Like, you can't be like, hey, no, and you're kind of gross. No, you can't do that.
Yes.
He's the king, and it's just not possible.
Not for English subjects anyway, which is how Anne couldn't say no, Jane couldn't say no, and Howard and Parr, they could not say no. But interestingly, when he was looking for a foreign princess after Jane died, there was a rejection from Christina of Denmark. Classic rejection. If I had two heads, one would be the disposal of the king. And even what was her name? I've forgotten her name now. Marie de Guise, the mother of Mary Queen of Scots. She also rejected him because her neck was too small, something like that. Some other reference to Anne Boleyn. So they were able to reject him because they were foreign princesses. But the moment he set his sights on an English lady, that was it. She couldn't say no.
Yeah. And I have a feeling that, if they could, people don't look at it that way, but, if they could have said no, I highly doubt that Catherine Howard or Catherine Parr would have wanted anything to do with him.
I don't think so. Not at that stage of his life, no.
You got a smelly old man being like, hey, you're going to marry me. It's like, if they could say no, they would have said no, king or not.
I think, Catherine Parr especially, because she was already in love with Thomas Seymour, so,
actually, one thing I want to talk about, if you don't mind, because a minute ago we were talking about, like, misinformation and stuff. With Catherine Parr, there's a lot of that around. And one thing that we almost have as far as I'm aware, no historical evidence from her time, at least unbiased, that, of course, we know Thomas Seymour and Elizabeth, but people have this belief that Catherine helped Thomas Seymour in this, but if I'm not mistaken, there is no reference from her time. Like, Kat Ashley's testimony, if I'm not mistaken, has like no mention. I may be wrong here, of course, but
so the only thing that I know in which she's helped in the situation is, and I say helped loosely because I do not believe that Catherine Parr was aware of what Thomas Seymour was trying to achieve and how far it was going. But one thing that she did do that I'm not so happy about is that there is an occasion where Thomas Seymour was trying to rip and cut a dress off of Elizabeth, and it came across as playful, I believe, and Catherine Parr held her so that, like, to facilitate Seymour's shredding of her dress. Now, I don't understand why she would do that. I think she probably was trying to show Elizabeth that, see, it's all in jest. It's just playful. But really, I think in that moment, she probably also realized, actually, this is not normal. This is not funny. Maybe that was a moment of realization. But other than that, I will not say, of course, I don't believe Catherine Parr had anything to do with what happened between Seymour and Elizabeth. And we don't even know the extent of what happened between them either. So, it's a strange one.
Yeah, because, like, if she did, I agree with you on that, though. If she did it, she likely didn't realize the extent to which it was. Again, not really an excuse, but, there's no evidence to...
No, but I don't think it was malicious.
No.
No, I don't think whatever she did, it wasn't malicious. No. It was, if anything, trying to make it less of a thing.
Yeah.
But then I think in it, then realized, actually, this is weird.
Yeah. Let's see, is there any more questions left, I wonder? And I think we have covered all the questions.
Okay. Nice.
Okay. It was very nice to talk to you.
It was very nice to talk to you as well. Thank you so much.
Okay, so that has been the first episode of Courtly Conversation. And so I'll see everyone next episode. Okay? And we...